Imagine waking up one day to discover that the nearest supermarket to your home has closed its doors. We're not talking about a small convenience store, but rather the main place where you buy food for your family. Now imagine having to drive miles and miles just to buy milk, bread, or fresh fruit. For millions of Americans, this isn't just a distant possibility. It's an imminent reality that's rapidly approaching. In the United States, a silent crisis is developing on supermarket shelves and in the empty aisles of once bustling stores. 10 American cities are facing a real and significant threat: the closure of their local supermarkets. This isn't just about losing convenience or having to drive a little farther. We're talking about a problem that deeply affects public health, the local economy, and the social fabric of entire communities. The phenomenon of food deserts is not new, but it's expanding in alarming ways. A food desert is defined as an urban area where residents have limited access to fresh, nutritious, and affordable food, especially fruits, vegetables, and other perishable products. When supermarkets close, especially in low-income areas, they leave behind vulnerable populations who depend on these establishments not only for food, but also as community centers and sources of employment. The reasons behind these closures are complex and multifaceted. Galloping inflation in recent years has raised supermarkets' operational costs to unsustainable levels in many areas. Food prices have risen dramatically, but supermarkets can't always pass these costs on to consumers, especially in low-income communities where purchasing power is already limited. Additionally, store theft, or shrinkage as it's known in the industry, has reached epidemic proportions in some cities, further eroding already thin profit margins. Fierce competition from online retailers and shifting consumer shopping habits also contribute to the problem. E-commerce giants like Amazon and Walmart have aggressively expanded their delivery operations, offering unparalleled convenience. For traditional supermarkets in dense urban areas, where real estate costs are prohibitive and parking is scarce, competing in this new environment has become virtually impossible. But let's be clear, when we talk about supermarket closures, we're not just discussing numbers on a corporate spreadsheet. We're talking about real people facing real challenges. A single mother working 2 jobs who depends on the neighborhood supermarket because she doesn't have a car. An elderly person with limited mobility who can no longer take a bus to a distant supermarket. Low-income families already struggling to put food on the table who now face additional transportation costs just to access basic food items. The public health consequences are devastating and well documented. When supermarkets close, residents often turn to convenience stores, gas stations, and fast food for their food needs. These establishments rarely offer fresh fruits, vegetables, or quality meats. Instead, their shelves are stocked with processed foods high in sugar, salt, and saturated fats. The result? Higher rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic diet-related conditions. Epidemiological studies have shown a direct correlation between living in food deserts and negative health outcomes. Research published in the American Journal of Public Health found that people living in areas without adequate access to supermarkets are 25% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes and 30% more likely to suffer from obesity compared to those who have easy access to fresh food. The 10 cities facing the highest risk of supermarket closures share worryingly similar demographic and economic characteristics. Let's explore each of them in detail to understand the magnitude of the problem. Detroit, Michigan, leads the list of at-risk cities. Once the beating heart of the American automotive industry, Detroit has experienced decades of economic decline, population loss, and urban disinvestment. Large areas of the city are already considered food deserts, with some neighborhoods having only 1 or 2 supermarkets serving tens of thousands of residents. The city's poverty rate remains above 30%, and many residents depend on inadequate public transportation. When a supermarket closes in Detroit, it's not uncommon for residents to need to travel more than 5 miles to find another. Chicago, Illinois, especially its South and West Side neighborhoods, faces similar challenges. These areas, predominantly inhabited by low-income African American and Latino communities, have seen a wave of supermarket closures over the past 5 years. Urban violence and high crime rates have made some areas less attractive to retailers, creating a vicious cycle. Less investment leads to more community deterioration, which in turn drives away more businesses. In some Chicago neighborhoods, families spend up to 40% of their income on food alone because they need to shop at smaller, more expensive stores or pay for transportation to distant supermarkets. San Francisco, California, presents an interesting paradox. Despite being one of the wealthiest cities in the United States and a global center of technology and innovation, certain areas of San Francisco are losing supermarkets at an alarming rate. The problem here isn't primarily poverty, but rather a toxic combination of organized retail theft, astronomical operating costs, and municipal policies that some chains consider unfavorable to business. Several major chains, including Walgreens and Target, have closed stores in the city citing unsustainable losses due to theft. Portland, Oregon, another city known for its quality of life and progressivism, is not immune. Downtown Portland and some peripheral neighborhoods have faced waves of store closures after the COVID-19 pandemic. The combination of remote work, which emptied downtown, increased crime and substance dependency issues, created a challenging environment for retailers. Supermarkets that once served office workers and downtown residents now struggle to remain economically viable. Oakland, California, neighbor to the San Francisco Bay, faces many of the same problems. The city has a long history of economic inequality and racial segregation, and these historical divisions are reflected and reinforced by the unequal distribution of supermarkets. High-income neighborhoods in Oakland have multiple shopping options, including organic markets and specialty stores, while low-income neighborhoods face chronic shortages of fresh food options. Baltimore, Maryland, is another city where supermarket closures represent a growing crisis. With a poverty rate that rivals Detroit's and deep problems with urban violence, Baltimore has struggled to attract and retain food retailers. The city has initiated several incentive programs to encourage supermarkets to open or remain in underserved neighborhoods, but with limited success. Many Baltimore residents, especially the elderly and families without cars, depend on small neighborhood stores where prices are significantly higher and the selection of fresh products is minimal. Cleveland, Ohio, shares the history of many American Rust Belt cities. Deindustrialization and population loss have left vast areas of the city with underdeveloped infrastructure and limited economic opportunities. Supermarkets in Cleveland face narrow profit margins, high security costs, and a customer base with limited purchasing power. Several neighborhoods in Cleveland's east side haven't had a full-service supermarket for over a decade. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, presents some of the most severe racial disparities in the country, and these disparities are clearly visible in food access. Predominantly, Black neighborhoods in North Milwaukee are food deserts, with residents often depending on dollar stores and gas stations for their food needs. The city has attempted various initiatives to address the problem, but the challenge remains daunting. Memphis, Tennessee, another city with high poverty rates and persistent racial segregation, has seen several major supermarkets close in recent years. The consequences have been particularly severe for elderly people and low-income families who don't have reliable transportation. In some areas of Memphis, the nearest supermarket is more than 10 miles away. Finally, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania completes our list of 10 at-risk cities. As the sixth largest city in the United States, Philadelphia faces unique challenges. Despite having thriving and vibrant neighborhoods, vast areas of the city, particularly in North and West Philadelphia, are food deserts. The city has the highest poverty rate among major American cities, with nearly a quarter of its residents living below the poverty line. This economic reality makes it difficult for supermarkets to operate profitably, especially when combined with the high costs of doing business in a major city. Now that we've identified these 10 cities, it's crucial to understand what's driving this crisis more deeply. Economic factors are the most obvious, but also the most complex. Profit margins in the supermarket sector have always been notoriously thin, typically ranging between 1% and 3%. This means that even small changes in operating costs or revenues can make a store unprofitable. In recent years, multiple factors have converged to squeeze these margins even tighter. Food inflation has reached levels not seen in decades. Between 2020 and 2023, food prices in the United States increased by more than 20% in some categories. While supermarkets tried to pass some of these costs on to consumers, Their ability to do so is limited, especially in low-income communities where customers simply don't have the resources to pay higher prices. The result is a margin compression that makes many stores unsustainable. Labor costs have also skyrocketed. The tight post-pandemic labor market forced retailers to increase wages to attract and retain employees. While this is positive for workers, it adds significant pressure to supermarkets' operating costs. In states and cities that have significantly increased minimum wages, some supermarkets found they can no longer operate profitably, especially in locations with lower sales. The store theft problem deserves special attention because it has become a critical factor in many closures. We're not just talking about occasional shoplifting of small items. In many cities, supermarkets face large-scale organized theft, where coordinated groups enter stores and systematically clear shelves of high-value products. These items are then resold online or through other channels. Some stores report losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars annually from theft alone. What makes the theft problem particularly insidious is that it's not evenly distributed. Stores in high-income neighborhoods generally face much lower theft rates than those in low-income areas. This creates a terrible ethical dilemma. The communities that most need affordable supermarkets are often those where stores face the greatest theft losses, making them economically unviable. Some supermarket chains have implemented extensive security measures, including locked products, more security guards, and advanced surveillance technology, but these measures add significant costs and can create an unpleasant shopping atmosphere. The digital transformation of retail also plays an important role. The explosive growth of e-commerce and grocery delivery has fundamentally changed how many Americans shop for food. For consumers with resources, ordering groceries online offers unmatched convenience. But this shift has had unintended consequences for physical supermarkets, especially those in dense urban areas. Traditional supermarkets have invested heavily in their own e-commerce capabilities, but this requires significant capital investment in technology, logistics, and personnel. Smaller stores in low-income neighborhoods often can't justify these investments, putting them at a competitive disadvantage. Additionally, economies of scale favor large retailers and e-commerce giants, making it harder for independent supermarkets or smaller chain stores to compete. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated many of these trends. During lockdowns, many consumers tried online shopping for the first time and discovered they liked the convenience. Even after returning to normalcy, many maintained these new habits. For supermarkets that depended on consistent foot traffic, especially those in urban centers or near office districts, the shift to remote work was devastating. Stores that once served office workers during lunch and after work saw their sales plummet. Real estate costs in urban areas add another layer of complexity. Operating a supermarket requires significant space, not just for the sales floor, but also for storage, receiving, and ideally, parking. In cities like San Francisco, New York, or Boston, where real estate values are astronomical, leasing or ownership costs can consume a huge portion of a store's revenue. When combined with other challenges, this can make urban locations financially unviable. Regulatory and political factors also come into play. Some cities have implemented regulations that, while well-intentioned, increase operating costs for supermarkets. This can include complex licensing requirements, sector-specific fees, packaging mandates, or zoning rules that limit operations. Again, while these policies may have legitimate goals, they can inadvertently make it harder for supermarkets to operate profitably, especially in areas where margins are already tight. The consequences of supermarket closures extend far beyond the inconvenience of having to drive farther to shop. They touch virtually every aspect of community life, from public health to economic development and social cohesion. From a public health perspective, the impact is profound and far-reaching. When families lose access to full-service supermarkets, their ability to maintain a healthy and balanced diet diminishes drastically. Fresh fruits and vegetables, dairy products, lean meats, and whole grains become less accessible or completely inaccessible. In their place, residents turn to foods available at convenience stores and gas stations, packaged snacks, soft drinks, processed frozen foods, and fast food. The link between food deserts and negative health outcomes is well established in scientific literature. Children growing up in areas without adequate access to fresh food have significantly higher rates of childhood obesity. This childhood obesity often persists into adulthood and is associated with a range of chronic health problems, including type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and certain types of cancer. The economic cost of these conditions is astronomical, both for individuals and for the healthcare system as a whole. For adults, especially the elderly, the loss of a nearby supermarket can be particularly devastating. Many elderly people have limited mobility or no longer drive. A neighborhood supermarket within short walking distance isn't just convenient. It's essential for their independence and quality of life. When that supermarket closes, they may become dependent on family members, friends, or social services for their basic food needs. This not only undermines their dignity and autonomy, but can also lead to social isolation and depression. The specific nutritional impact is also concerning. Studies show that people living in food deserts consume significantly fewer fruits and vegetables than those with easy access to supermarkets. The recommended intake of fruits and vegetables is at least 5 servings per day, but food desert residents often consume less than half of that. Deficiency in essential nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and dietary fiber can lead to a range of health problems, from anemia to compromised immune function. The economic consequences of supermarket closures are also significant. Supermarkets are often one of the largest employers in low-income neighborhoods. A medium-sized supermarket can employ 50 to 150 people, offering entry-level jobs that are crucial for young people, students, and those entering or re-entering the workforce. When a supermarket closes, not only do these jobs disappear, but also the opportunities for skill development and career advancement they represent. Beyond direct job losses, there are indirect economic impacts. Supermarkets serve as anchors for shopping centers and retail districts. They attract foot traffic that benefits other nearby businesses. When a supermarket closes, the entire commercial district can go into decline. Small businesses that depended on customers who were also shopping at the supermarket may see their sales plummet, leading to more closures and creating a downward spiral of economic decline. The impact on real estate values is also notable. Residential properties near supermarkets generally command higher prices because convenient access to grocery shopping is a valued amenity. When a supermarket closes, property values in the surrounding area often fall. This harms homeowners' wealth and reduces the city's tax base, potentially leading to cuts in essential public services. From a social cohesion perspective, supermarkets play a more important role than many people realize. They serve as informal community spaces where neighbors meet, exchange news, and maintain social connections. In many neighborhoods, especially those with immigrant populations, specific ethnic supermarkets are not just places to buy food, but cultural centers that offer familiar products, provide a sense of community, and help preserve culinary traditions. When these establishments close, communities lose more than just access to food. They lose a piece of their cultural identity and social network. The issue of equity and social justice is also central to this discussion. Supermarket closures don't affect all communities equally. There's a clear and disturbing pattern. The neighborhoods most affected are disproportionately those inhabited by communities of color and low-income families. This isn't coincidence, but rather the result of decades of systematic disinvestment, housing segregation, and discriminatory policies that concentrated poverty and limited economic opportunities in certain areas. This pattern of disparity in food access is often called food apartheid by activists and researchers, a term that highlights not just inequality, but also its roots in historical and ongoing systems of oppression. While wealthy neighborhoods have multiple supermarkets, specialty food markets, organic produce stores, and healthy restaurants, low-income communities struggle to maintain even a single basic supermarket. The additional financial stress imposed on families by losing nearby supermarkets cannot be underestimated. When families need to travel farther to buy food, they incur additional costs. Gasoline or public transportation fares, lost time that could be spent working or caring for children, and often higher prices if they're forced to shop at smaller stores between trips. For families already at the financial breaking point, these additional expenses can be the difference between making ends meet or not. Facing this growing crisis, the inevitable question is, what can be done? Fortunately, while the challenges are significant, they're not insurmountable. There's a variety of potential solutions being explored and implemented in different parts of the country, each with its own merits and limitations. One approach involves government incentives and subsidies to encourage supermarkets to open or remain in underserved areas. Several cities and states have implemented programs offering tax incentives, low-cost loans, or direct subsidies to food retailers willing to operate in food deserts. Pennsylvania, for example, established the Fresh Food Financing Initiative, which provided over $30 million in grants and loans to attract supermarkets to underserved communities. The program has been credited with opening or expanding dozens of supermarkets and creating thousands of jobs. However, while financial incentives can help, they're not a panacea. If the fundamental economic challenges, such as theft, high operating costs, or insufficient customer demand aren't addressed, even subsidized supermarkets may eventually fail. Additionally, there are legitimate questions about whether taxpayer dollars should be used to subsidize private for-profit companies, especially when there are no guarantees these businesses will remain viable long-term. Another promising approach involves alternative retail models. Community-owned and operated food cooperatives represent an alternative to the traditional for-profit supermarket model. In these cooperatives, community members invest in the business, participate in governance, and share in profits. This model creates strong community ownership and ensures the business is responsive to local needs. Successful food cooperatives operate throughout the country, demonstrating this model can work. Mobile markets and pop-up supermarket units represent another innovative solution. These traveling businesses bring fresh produce and other essential foods directly to underserved neighborhoods on a regular schedule. While they can't fully replicate the full-service supermarket experience, they provide crucial access to fresh food for communities that would otherwise have none. Nonprofit organizations like Fresh Moves Mobile Market in Chicago have demonstrated the viability of this model. Technology also offers potential solutions. Online grocery delivery platforms could theoretically provide access to fresh food even in areas without physical supermarkets. However, this solution has significant limitations. Many food desert residents don't have reliable internet access or credit cards needed for online shopping. Delivery fees can be prohibitive for low-income families, and not all delivery services operate in all areas. Additionally, the ability to personally select fresh produce is important to many shoppers. Strengthening small independent retailers in underserved communities is another strategy. Programs providing technical assistance, financing, and training to small neighborhood store owners can help them expand their fresh food offerings. The Healthy Corner Stores initiative in several cities works with bodega owners and convenience store proprietors to add fruits, vegetables, and other healthy options to their shelves. While these smaller stores can never offer the variety and prices of a full supermarket, they can provide an important supplement. Addressing the root causes of poverty and economic inequality is ultimately fundamental to solving the food desert crisis. This requires a comprehensive approach including economic development, affordable housing, quality education, job training, and support for living wages. When communities thrive economically, supermarkets naturally follow because there's a viable customer base. Policies promoting shared prosperity and reducing income inequality benefit not just food access, but all aspects of community life. The store theft problem also needs to be addressed head-on. This requires a balanced approach that protects both businesses and civil rights. Increased police presence and enforcement can help, but must be implemented in ways that don't result in over-policing or racial profiling of communities of color. Investing in social programs addressing underlying causes of crime such as poverty, drug dependency, and lack of opportunities is equally important. Some jurisdictions are also exploring legal reforms making it easier to prosecute organized retail theft while ensuring petty shoplifting by individuals in need is handled appropriately. Urban planning and zoning policies also play a role. Cities can use zoning tools to reserve space for supermarkets in new developments and ensure neighborhoods are designed in ways that support walkability and access to essential services. Transit-oriented development policies, which concentrate housing and retail near public transportation hubs, can improve food access even for residents without cars. Public-private partnerships represent another promising avenue. When governments, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and community leaders work together, they can create solutions no single sector could achieve alone. These partnerships can combine public resources, business expertise, local community knowledge, and nonprofit services to develop comprehensive approaches to ensuring food access. Education and awareness are also important. Many people, including policymakers, don't fully understand the extent or consequences of food deserts. Raising awareness about this issue can generate political will for action and inspire innovative solutions. Community organizations, researchers, and advocates play a crucial role in documenting the problem, sharing stories of affected communities, and pushing for change. Looking forward, it's clear there's no single solution to the supermarket crisis facing these 10 American cities. Instead, what's needed is a multifaceted approach addressing economic factors, security issues, systemic inequalities, and community planning. It requires commitment from multiple stakeholders, sustained investment, and willingness to experiment with new models. What's at stake couldn't be higher. Access to nutritious and affordable food isn't a luxury, it's a basic human necessity and a fundamental right. When entire communities are deprived of this access, it's not just inconvenient. It's an injustice that perpetuates inequalities and harms the health and well-being of millions of Americans. The 10 cities we've identified stand on the brink of crisis, but with determined action and innovative solutions, it's still possible to reverse this trend and ensure all Americans, regardless of where they live or how much they earn, have access to the fresh and healthy food they need to thrive.